Have you ever noticed that the more you try to change your life, the more it seems like everything falls apart before it gets better? Well, maybe what you're experiencing now isn't bad luck, but rather spiritual awakening that the universe is forcing on you. In the next few minutes, you'll understand why, before blessing you, the universe needs to remove certain things from your life, and how this, in fact, is the beginning of your true prosperity. Many people think that spiritual awakening is simply about meditating, being at peace and attracting good vibes. But the truth is that the universe begins by clearing away what blocks your abundance: people, thoughts, beliefs, situations, and even opportunities that seemed too good to pass up. But when this happens, most people panic, unaware that they're losing what's blocking the flow of wealth. Alan Watts said, "When you let go of control, life begins to flow." And that's exactly what will happen to you when you understand what the universe is doing right now. So pay attention. If everything seems to be falling apart, if you feel like you've lost your way, it could be the most powerful sign that something big is about to be born within you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the 7 things the universe takes from your life when you spiritually awaken. And when you understand each of them, you will realize that nothing you lost was in vain. It was the price to receive something much greater. Now you understand what the universe is doing in your life. It's not taking anything from you, it's preparing you to receive everything. This knowledge changes the way you view your losses, your pain, and even your failures. From today on, nothing will be the same, because you've discovered how spiritual awakening is the direct path to true prosperity. And since this video opened your mind and made you see life differently, reciprocate this energy, like and subscribe to the channel. This way, you'll continue receiving content that elevates your consciousness and attracts what is rightfully yours. Have you ever noticed how we try to control absolutely everything? Life, people, time, the outcome of things. It seems like there's a desperate need within us to hold the reins of everything, as if any slip-up would make us lose our way. But when spiritual awakening begins, the universe gives the first push and rips that very thing away from you. Control. And, of course, at first, it's desperate. You try to understand why everything starts to fall apart, why plans that seemed right fall apart, why people drift apart without explanation, and nothing seems to make sense anymore. But that's the point. The universe isn't punishing you, it's freeing you from the illusion that you can control what in fact was never in your hands. Alan Watts said that trying to control the future is like trying to hold water in your hands. The harder you hold it, the faster it escapes. That's exactly what happens when life starts teaching you to let go. Spiritual awakening is a process of deconstruction, not comfort. It's the moment when the universe shows you that everything you believe to be solid can dissolve overnight, and your role is not to stop it, but to learn to flow with it. And you know what's most interesting? When you finally understand that you're not in control, life begins to align in ways that previously seemed impossible. Opportunities appear where you least expect them. Money begins to flow more easily, and what once seemed like effort becomes natural. But until you get there, the process is painful, because control gives you a false sense of security. It's as if you have a rope in your hands and believe that as long as you hold it tight, nothing bad can happen. But the truth is, this rope isn't attached anywhere. It's just an illusion that tires you, limits you, and prevents you from seeing what lies beyond. The universe knows this, and so it begins to put you in situations where control is impossible. It pushes you out of your comfort zone, makes you deal with unexpected events, losses, sudden changes, until you learn to trust the flow. And at that moment, what seemed like chaos reveals itself as the beginning of a new phase, a phase in which you stop fighting the current and begin to let it take you where you need to go. Think about it. How many times in your life did something go wrong, and later on, did you realize it was the best thing that could have happened? How many times did a closed door force you to follow a path that turned out to be much better? This is the universe at work, teaching you that control is different from direction. When you try to control, you act out of fear. When you direct, you act out of faith. And faith is the fuel of all true manifestation. Therefore, when the universe strips you of the illusion of control, it is opening space for abundance to enter. Because control comes from the fear of loss, and fear is the greatest obstacle to prosperity. Alan Watts believed that life is like a dance. The secret isn't reaching a destination, but learning to move with the rhythm. As long as you're trying to anticipate the next step, you'll stumble. But when you start to feel the music, the flow of existence, everything falls into place. And that's what spiritual awakening does. It makes you feel the music of life. It's uncomfortable at first, because you have to trust the unseen. But it's liberating when you realize that the universe never misses a beat. Everything is exactly where it should be, including you. Now pay attention. Perhaps what you're experiencing today is precisely this phase in which the universe is forcing you to let go. You may be losing things that seemed safe. Everything is changing too quickly, and you feel like you no longer have control over anything. And that's where transformation happens, because when control ends, true power begins. The power to create without fear, to attract what's yours, to align with the flow of life. The universe doesn't want you to fight, it wants you to trust. So I want you to comment below the word flow. Write flow to declare that you are ready to let go of what holds you back and allow the universe to do its work. This simple act, besides reinforcing what you are learning now, is a way of putting into practice the first step of awakening: surrender. And you know what's funny? When you start letting go of control, the universe begins to act silently. Things that previously required effort begin to happen naturally. The right people appear, money comes in unexpected ways, and the peace you've always sought emerges from where you least expected. And it's at that moment that you understand. What the universe took from you wasn't loss, it was liberation. But this is just the first stage of awakening, because once the universe teaches you to let go of control, it begins to stir something even deeper, something that directly touches how you see yourself and who you believe yourself to be. And that's exactly what the next part is about. When the universe senses that you're beginning to let go of your control, it takes the next step. It rips away from you what fuels your suffering most, your identification with your ego. And this is perhaps the hardest blow to accept, because the ego is that voice that says, I know who I am, I know what I want, I know what I deserve. But spiritual awakening arrives precisely to show you that this voice isn't actually you. It's just a character you've learned to play to survive in the world. It's your social image, the role you assume to be accepted, loved, and recognized. And the universe, in its wisdom, begins to dismantle this disguise, not to punish you but to reveal you. Alan Watts said that the ego is like a shadow. It only exists when light is cast on an image. In other words, the ego is created by the mind when you believe you need to be someone, prove something, achieve status, titles, money, or approval. It's the I that compares itself, feels offended, seeks control and recognition. And when the universe starts to strip this away, it feels like you're falling apart inside. You feel like you're losing your identity, that you're becoming aimless, worthless, and purposeless. But in truth, what's dying is only what was never real: the character. Spiritual awakening confronts you with emptiness, and that emptiness is frightening. It's the moment when you no longer know who you are, what you want, or what makes sense. It's when certainties vanish, and you must face the silence you've always avoided. But it's in that very silence that truth begins to emerge. Watts said, "You are not a being with a soul. You are the soul itself experiencing the human being." And when that truly sinks in, you realize you no longer need to defend an image, prove your worth, or compete for space. You simply and this liberation is profound. Because when the ego loses its power, so does fear. Anger weakens. Envy disappears. You begin to act with more lightness, more compassion, more presence. Things stop being mine and become ours. You understand that you don't have to win all the time because no one is competing with you. Life stops being a war and becomes a stream of experiences that simply show you more of who you are. And curiously, it's precisely when you stop trying to be someone else that the universe begins to use you for something greater. But up to this point, the process is painful. Because the ego hates to disappear, it will fight, it will try to convince you that you're losing everything, that you're being humiliated, that you're wrong. It will create drama, victimhood, pride. It will make you react, defend yourself, blame others, all to continue existing. And that's when the universe comes along and puts you in situations where maintaining your ego is impossible. It makes you experience rejection, humiliation, loss, disappointment. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because it wants to free you. It's as if to say, Do you still believe you are this image? Then I'm going to shatter it so you can see who you are behind it. How many times have you felt like you had to lose everything to find yourself? How many times have you had to break your pride to move forward? This is the universe shaping you from within, removing what is non-essential, and when the ego begins to fade, something magical happens. You begin to hear your true voice, the one that comes from within, calm, serene, without shouting. It's your essence returning to command the journey. So when everything seems like chaos and you feel like you're losing who you are, know that the universe is simply stripping away your persona to reveal the real you within. And this being is far more powerful, far more abundant, and far freer than any identity the world can offer you. Write the word here in the comments essence to leave a mark that you understood the universe's message and are ready to let go of your ego. This word carries power, and by writing it, you send a clear message. I'm coming back to myself. And that's where true awakening begins, when you realize you no longer need to prove anything to anyone. But the universe still has more lessons to teach you, because after it wrests control and dismantles the ego, it goes straight to something that hurts more than anything: attachments. And that's exactly what the next part is about. Once the universe takes control from you and dismantles your ego, it begins to tear away what most binds you to suffering: attachment. And this is one of the most difficult phases of spiritual awakening, because, without realizing it, you've built much of your life relying on people, things, and situations. You've become accustomed to believing you need someone to be happy, a job to feel secure, a routine to feel in control. But the universe, in the process of awakening, begins to show you that none of this is fixed, that what is truly yours cannot be lost, and what can be lost was never truly yours. At first, it hurts, and it hurts a lot, because people walk away, opportunities disappear, plans fall apart. Suddenly, everything that seemed stable starts to crumble, and you try to understand why. Why is this happening to me? Why is everything going wrong right now, when I was doing well? But the truth is, nothing is going wrong. The universe is simply clearing the way, removing what's holding you back, what's blocking the natural flow of life. Alan Watts said that pain is the sign that you're resisting change, and attachment is exactly that: resistance. It's trying to hold on to something that life is already trying to take away. Have you ever noticed that the more we try to hold on to someone, the further they drift away? The more we try to control a situation, the more it slips away. This happens because attachment is based on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of loss, fear of starting over. But spiritual awakening teaches you that true love isn't born of fear, it's born of freedom. Loving someone isn't about holding on, it's about allowing the other person to be. Loving a dream isn't about clinging to an outcome, it's about trusting the process. And loving life isn't about trying to avoid what hurts, it's about accepting what comes with faith that everything has a purpose. Alan Watts talked a lot about impermanence. He said that life is like playing a note. The sound is only beautiful because it ends. When you understand this, you begin to realize that loss is part of the cycle. Everything that comes into your life has a time: people, phases, jobs, even pain. Nothing is eternal, and this is liberating. Because when you let go of attachments, fear disappears and peace enters. You begin to love without needing to possess, to live without needing to guarantee, to give without expecting anything in return. And it is at this point that the universe begins to return to you all that is truly yours, not because you force it, but because you are now ready to receive. But of course, the process is cruel when we don't yet understand its purpose. Sometimes the universe needs to rip someone out of your life to show you how lost you've been trying to please others. Other times, it needs to take you out of a place to show you that you weren't born to fit into small spaces. And in some cases, it leaves you with nothing so that you realize you never lacked anything. Everything you thought you needed was just taking up space for what would truly help you evolve. Attachment is what keeps people trapped in relationships that have already ended, in jobs that make them sick, in beliefs that limit them. It's the root of almost all human suffering. And the universe, in its process of love, because that's what awakening is, an act of love, begins to prune away everything that binds you to these illusions. Not to punish you, but to free you. And deep down you know this, Because every time something goes away, soon after comes a feeling of lightness, a breath of fresh air, a clarity. It's as if in the midst of the pain, you hear a voice saying, "Now you can move on with more ease." Maybe you're going through exactly this right now. Maybe you lost someone, a job, a friendship, or even a phase in your life that defined you. And even without understanding, you feel something inside you asking you to let go. This is the universe teaching you to trust. Letting go isn't giving up, it's allowing. It's accepting that what's yours will find a way to stay, and what isn't will go to make room for something new. Comment below the word, let go. Write let go to mark this moment when you decide to release what has already fulfilled its role in your life. This word has power because it symbolizes the beginning of lightness, the start of a new phase where abundance flows without resistance. And the most interesting thing is that when you learn to let go, life begins to align in surprising ways. Money appears where you least expect it. Opportunities spring up effortlessly. People enter your life bringing purpose, and everything begins to flow naturally. But to truly experience this lightness, the universe still needs to uproot something much deeper, fear. And that's what the next part is about. There comes a point in spiritual awakening when the universe confronts you with your greatest enemy, fear of the unknown. This is where many people freeze, give up, and try to return to their comfort zone because ego, control, and attachment are gone, and what's left is emptiness, silence, and uncertainty. And human beings hate uncertainty. They always want to know what will happen, they want guarantees, they want security. But awakening comes precisely to free you from this need for predictability. Alan Watts said that insecurity is the price of freedom. And that's exactly what the universe begins to teach you when it pulls the ground out from under you. Have you ever experienced that moment when nothing seems to make sense, when you look around and think, what's happening to me? It's the moment when the universe pulls you off the old path and throws you onto a new one. Only at first you can't see the destination. Everything seems dark, confusing, as if you've lost the map. And it's natural to feel fear, because the human brain seeks the familiar, even if the familiar hurts. That's why so many people settle into bad relationships, meaningless jobs, and suffocating routines. The fear of throwing yourself into the new is greater than the pain of staying in the old. But the universe doesn't negotiate with fear. It wants to teach you to trust. And to do so, it will knock you off solid ground, push you into the dark, and make you walk without seeing the next step, because that's how you discover the power of faith. Alan Watts said that life is like jumping off a cliff and building wings on the way down, and as scary as it may seem, it's in that leap that true transformation happens. When you embrace the unknown, fear loses its power. You begin to realize that the new isn't a threat, it's an opportunity disguised as a challenge. Fear is the last guardian of your comfort zone. It will try to convince you that the old way is safer, even though it's killing you inside. It will whisper that you're incapable, that it's too risky, that it's going to fail. But spiritual awakening is the moment you look that fear in the eye and keep going, even trembling. And when you do, something incredible happens. Fear transforms into strength. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move forward despite it. The unknown is where life reinvents itself. Everything you desire, prosperity, freedom, true love, is on the other side of fear. The problem is, most people would rather dream about it than walk the path to it. But you're not the majority. If the universe has brought you here, it's because you're ready to let go of the old and embrace the new. And honestly, that's when the blessings begin to manifest. When you stop trying to understand everything and simply trust. Think about how many times you've avoided something out of fear and then realized that if you'd tried, everything would have worked out. How many opportunities have you let pass you by because you thought it wasn't the right time? You weren't prepared. You weren't capable. Fear is an invisible prison, and awakening is the key. The universe begins to show you that every "I don't know" is actually a "now you'll find out." It takes away your control, dismantles you, makes you walk with your eyes closed, to teach you to feel the path with your heart. Alan Watts used to say that life is like playing jazz, you improvise as you play. This is how the universe wants you to live, without scripts, without formulas, without fear. Just present. When you understand this, you begin to open yourself to the unexpected, and the unexpected becomes your greatest ally, because it is there in the unknown that the new is born. Now I want you to comment below the word, I trust. Write, I trust, to record that, from this day forward, you choose to trust the process even without understanding it. This word is a signal to the universe that you are ready to move beyond fear and enter the phase of conscious creation. And that's exactly what the universe begins to do when you choose to trust. It changes the way you relate to people and the world. Suddenly you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone, and something inside you begins to awaken a new kind of freedom, the freedom to be who you truly are. And that's what the next part is about. When you overcome your fear of the unknown, the universe takes the next step, and perhaps the most liberating of all. It strips you of your need for approval. And if you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that almost everything you've done so far on some level has been done to be accepted, recognized, or admired, from the clothes you choose to the way you speak, work, or interact. We grow up believing we need validation from others to feel worthy. And when spiritual awakening arrives, the universe begins to forcefully dismantle this lie. Alan Watts said that worrying about what others think is a mental prison disguised as virtue, and that's exactly what the universe comes to break, the fear of being you. At first, this process is painful, because you begin to realize how much you've shaped your life to please. You say yes when you mean no, accept situations that wear you down, swallow opinions, and call it kindness or humility. But in reality, it's a fear of rejection. The universe can't stand to see you living by others' expectations because it blocks your natural flow of prosperity. When you live to please, you disconnect from your essence, and the universe only blesses those who are authentic. So it begins to do what it must, put you in situations where pleasing is no longer an option. Suddenly, people stop understanding you. Friends drift away, family members judge you, colleagues criticize you, and you feel alone, as if the whole world has turned its back on you. But what's happening is simple. The universe is testing you to see if you remain steadfast in being who you truly are, even without applause, because it is at this point that true spiritual strength is born. Alan Watts said, "You are free when you realize you no longer owe anyone anything other than being who you are." And that freedom, when it arrives, changes everything. You begin to realize that silence is worth more than approval, that the peace of sleeping in peace with your own conscience is worth more than 1,000 compliments, that living your own truth is infinitely lighter than living a role. And curiously, when you stop seeking validation, the right people start to appear. Those who understand you without you having to explain yourself, who value you for who you are, not for what you offer. The universe replaces the need to please with the grace of being understood naturally. But the ego hates this. It craves recognition. It craves admiration. It craves being seen. It screams when silence arrives. But spiritual awakening makes you understand that being invisible for a while is necessary to reconnect with your own light. Because when you stop trying to be what others expect, you finally discover who you are. And ironically, it's at that moment that you become irresistible, because authenticity attracts. People sense when someone is genuine, and so does the universe. And this liberation doesn't just benefit your emotional side, it changes your relationship with money, work, and dreams. When you no longer need to prove anything to anyone, you begin to act with purpose, not status. And purpose is what generates abundance. Money flows when it comes from truth, not appearance. And the universe, which is pure energy, responds to authenticity like a perfect echo. Think about how many decisions you've made to please others. How many times you've given up on something you wanted because someone doubted you. How many times you've diminished yourself to fit in with a group. All of this has distanced you from your essence and, without realizing it, kept you small. But awakening comes to say, enough. The universe wants to see you take a stand, speak your mind, act according to your feelings, even if it causes discomfort, because it is in discomfort that the soul expands. And that's why, when you start freeing yourself from the need for approval, something incredible happens. You start to feel good, just being who you are. You no longer need applause, likes, or acceptance. You just need truth. The energy shifts, and the world begins to see you differently, because now your authentic self is leading your life, not the fear of disappointing others. Now, Write the word here in the comments authentic. Write authentic to declare that you're ready to live your life your way, without pretending, without pleasing, without hiding. This word marks the moment you take control of your own energy and begin to vibrate freedom. And it's curious because when you finally understand that you don't need anyone's approval, the universe begins to show you something even more profound. That, in truth, you've never been separate from anything. Not from people, not from life, not from God. And it's precisely about this revelation that the next part comes. Once the universe teaches you to free yourself from the need for approval, it begins to teach you two profound lessons simultaneously: the value of true connections and the end of the fear of rejection. This is where spiritual awakening becomes a delicate point, because the universe begins to show you who is truly with you out of affinity and who was only there for convenience. And brace yourself, because this revelation hurts. It hurts to realize that people you truly loved might only have loved the version of you that was useful, fun, and convenient. It hurts to see friendships drift apart, relationships crumble, family members become strangers. But this is how the universe separates what is true from what is just noise. Alan Watts said that love is the act of allowing the other to be who they are. And that's exactly what the universe wants you to learn, that meaningful connections only exist when there is freedom, not fear. At first, you feel lonely, and this loneliness is brutal. You look around and it seems like no one understands you anymore. Conversations change, topics lose their appeal, and even the places that once brought you joy begin to feel empty. It's the universe pulling you away from superficial connections to make room for soul connections. But while this space is still forming, the fear of rejection tries to take over. You start to question yourself. Is there something wrong with me? Am I isolating myself too much? Am I becoming strange? And that's when the biggest turning point happens, because it's precisely in this emptiness that you learn to be okay with yourself. Fear of rejection is one of the deepest roots of the ego. It forces you to mold yourself, to silence yourself, to fit into places that no longer resonate with you. Spiritual awakening destroys this. The universe begins to place you in situations where you will be misunderstood, criticized, even excluded, not to hurt you but to strengthen you. It's as if to say, do you still need the approval of others to feel whole? Then I'll show you that you can be whole even alone. And it's at that moment that you understand the power of authenticity. When you stop trying to be accepted, you begin to attract people who accept you naturally. What happens afterward is almost magical. The connections that endure, or the new ones that emerge, are different. They're calmer, deeper, more sincere. They're bonds that don't require a mask, don't demand explanations, don't drain energy. You can be yourself with your flaws, your silences, your strangeness, and still be understood. And this is rare, but the universe rewards those who have the courage to wait for it. It removes the fear of rejection precisely so you don't accept emotional crumbs. So you understand that being alone for a while is infinitely better than being surrounded by the wrong people. Alan Watts said that those who fear loneliness have not yet learned to be at peace with themselves. And that's exactly it. When you truly accept yourself, the fear of rejection completely loses its meaning. Because how can anyone reject someone who is already at peace with themselves? Rejection only hurts when there's dependence, when you need someone else to validate yourself. But when you discover that you're already enough, that you're already complete, the no from others stops being pain and becomes a filter. You understand that you haven't been rejected, you've been protected, and you know what's most beautiful. When you learn to deal with the fear of rejection, the universe rewards you with connections that don't drain you, but nourish you. People who don't compete but inspire you, who don't judge you but listen to you, who don't use you but build you up. That's when meaningful connections flourish, because now you're not connecting out of necessity, but out of a shared connection. Maybe right now you're going through this cleansing. Maybe you're seeing people leaving, friendships weakening, cycles ending. And it hurts, I know. But breathe, because the universe is only removing what prevents the new from entering. It's clearing the field for people who speak the same energetic language as you, and when they arrive, you'll understand that each goodbye was necessary. Now you understand why the universe takes away, changes, and affects your life so much. It's not punishing you, it's preparing you. Every loss, every separation, and every silence was a cleansing to bring you closer to your true essence and pave the way for prosperity, peace, and abundance to enter once and for all. This content helped you see what previously seemed confusing, making you understand that spiritual awakening is the beginning of a lighter, freer, and more prosperous life. And since this message brought you clarity and strength, spread this energy to others. Like and subscribe to the channel so more people can awaken to this truth too. Write the word here in the comments, wake up, because this is the sign that you're ready to continue evolving with me. And pay attention, the next video will delve even deeper into what you felt today. What follows will open your mind in a way you've never seen before, something that will completely change the way you see the signs of the universe and the power that already exists within you.